welcome to the first ever Fast Forward Sydney. I don't think it's unreasonable to say there were definitely points in this journey where we thought, never going to happen. And so if you see me kind of running around dancing a little bit when I think no one's watching, I'm quite excited to be here. We hope that Fast Forward is a conference like no other. We'll find out. In a moment we'll give you the Wi-Fi code, you won't hear anything else I say, so I should say this a bit quick. So Fast Forward was born out of a desire to get some fresh voices talking about the music industry, and to get lots of people with wisdom, insight, knowledge, and me in a room to share what's going on, to share their thoughts, to talk about the industry they want to see, as well as the industry we're in, and especially not to talk about the industry that was 30 years ago, that we were just a little bit too young for, or just missed out on, or wasn't it great when? No, mate, we've got a future. Sorry, now I'm making a Croydon phrase that I will cut out. There is a Croydon in South London, not to be confused with Croydon in Sydney, where they all talk like this, bruv, and it's just a bit messed up. We're cutting that from the video. You might notice I'm a little jet lagged. We'll see how that goes. So, yeah, Fast Forward set out to be something just a little different. We hope it's quite informal, we hope it's quite relaxed, and we hope that that kind of comes from the stage, but actually it's the same for you guys. Say hello to anyone, have a chat. We're all in this together, we're all trying to make the world a much more interesting place. I think music, for me, in a world where robots are going to be our overlords at some point, music's one of the things that is exceptional. Not actually a doomsday theorist, I promise. But music is so important to people, it connects so deeply. I think if we can also have fun while making it, that'd be a good thing. Okay, we have slides. The Wi-Fi code. So if you learn nothing else from the conference, the Wi-Fi code is function, in capitals at the start, capital at the end, 2018. Everyone's already on it, right? Everyone's already done the Wi-Fi thing, everyone's happy. Okay. So you'll see me in a few different guises over the course of 2 days. Drunk Chris is the best guise, but he's probably waiting until Friday afternoon. Not evening, afternoon. To talk you through how the programming works over the next couple of days. We're kind of finishing at 6 today. We've got drinks around the corner at APRA. The address is in your programs. They'll very kindly put them on a few nibbles and some beers and some wine. And I can't wait. Your exits are here, 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 here and here. Follow the big green running man to get out. To your left, I don't recommend the one directly behind me. There is a fire door there, but don't worry guys, we have checked and it's okay to just use one door. And so we haven't got a giant gap in the staging so you can leg it out this way. Having personally tested the fire exit involuntarily at 9:15 this morning, I can vouch for it. A little dusty, but very safe. What else to say? Looks at my further approval, I think. So, as I say, you'll see me a few different guises. One of them is admin Chris. He's a bit dull, he's less fun than drunk Chris. And probably slightly more engaging than keynote Chris, who you'll meet in a minute. The programme, we run a fairly tight ship, so we run fairly on time. One of the big things we do differently to most conferences is what we call our Fast 15s. So these are, so one of the challenges with conferences, I've spoken at a plethora of conferences in different places, often sat next to the same people saying the same thing I heard them say last year, which is partly why we're here. Not that it's not fun to do different European events, but it's so hard for experts to learn from a panel. Because so often, and we'll try and avoid this, but they can start at the bottom and get to the middle, and your experts kind of hear a new way of saying the same thing, and what you take away from it is a better way of communicating what you already know, rather than actually learning directly. And one of the things we try to do with the Fast 15s is to have speakers briefs so that you start in the middle, you get smart very quickly, and you get straight to the good stuff, so that your 15 minutes is from expert to expert. Hey, we've got Sammy in the corner. Sammy's probably my favourite delegate, sorry everybody. You'll meet one of my other favourite delegates from Fast Forward Amsterdam shortly. She makes an appearance in the keynote. But I think my youngest ever person in the room, at 5 months? Almost 5 months. I'm not very good with numbers, which is a big secret for the economists, but again. So, fairly relaxed environment. So much so admin Chris kicking in a change from your scheduled programming, where you might notice in the book it says something very different to Chris giving the keynote. You might notice there was a gentleman from a rather large American tech company who was meant to be here and then just couldn't at the last minute. And so I'm afraid you're stuck with me. That was a very considerate reason. Someone wanted years later, noted. And so I think, unless there's anything I've missed, we'll get straight in. So, keynote Chris likes to stand up and walk around. So, I thought it was really important to introduce myself because as well as being the conference organiser, I've kind of done some things. So I don't want you to feel like you just got shortchanged with the only guy available to do a keynote at the last minute. It was definitely easier to say, fuck it, I'll do it. But I promise there are some credentials to go with that. Okay, so, I always forget to introduce myself, so there's always a slide that has me on it, just to make sure I don't forget. I started life at HSBC in business banking. I couldn't recommend it with a clear conscience. I moved to PRS for Music, where I was an economist working for a chap called Will Page, who's now head of economics for Spotify. A rather smart cookie. It's probably fair to say that everything smart I've ever said I learned from him, and I'm still living in the good of that like 6 years later, so I probably owe him a bit. He gave a keynote at the first ever FastForward. Because I begged him to. What a gentleman. I was so senior economist at PRS for Music, did 3.5 years there, moved to EMI to run their global big data infrastructure and setup. So it was global insight director, basically looking at 13 billion rows of Spotify and iTunes data and making it useful rather than ones and zeros. Launched that across 40 markets before we got gobbled up by Universal Music Group. I was there for a year, global insights again, but doing consumer survey work. You could say I like numbers more than the average. You can tell how good a day it's going to be by how long the grown takes. So EMI doing a lot of the big data stuff, so looking at the incidental data created as people consume music. Moved to Universal, where I helped run the global consumer insight team. We did, at our peak, I think we did research in 32 countries, 17 languages, not bad for an alleged large record label. Moved forward, started media insight consulting almost 4 years ago to the day, which is quite exciting. Anyone wants to buy me a beer later, feel free. Actually, no, Friday, Drunk Chris, Friday, not Thursday. Media insight consulting, catchy name, don't name your own company in a hurry. And then you start getting traction, you start speaking of things, everyone's like, oh, media insight consulting, I can't fucking change it. The low light of small business ownership, the things they don't tell you. Chris at mediainsightconsulting.com doesn't fit on the standard Mr. Print business card. Had to get those specially made. The warning signs you look at and go, yeah, fucked it. So we work for a variety of kind of big and small music clients. Amongst them have consolidated Spotify, did a year for Sony Music setting up their global big data infrastructure, so 100 billion rows of Spotify and iTunes data transformed from ones and zeros to hopefully something helpful. We work with the O2 Arena, and one of my FastForward favourites, you'll build on social media. So venue that sells the most tickets in the world, only music venue that can be seen from space. Not too shabby. So we've done a lot of work with those guys, including their UK customer segmentation, so looking at who you can sell tickets to, and I'll still with them on a panel later, but there's some interesting stuff you can do with numbers. Also moved into theatre recently, so working for Andrew Lloyd Webber's theatre company. Also started this little thing called FastForward, you might have heard of it. So FastForward, we kind of talked about, but set up almost 2.5 years ago, did an event in Amsterdam, 150 people, future of the industry, loads of bright people coming together, it seems to be working. So we've done London, we've done Amsterdam, and don't worry guys, we're well briefed on Australia. It turns out the small island is not New Zealand. Every day is still there. Kidding, I knew that. Ish. Okay, enough about me. I want to talk, so sorry, to give you context, in fact, let's not put that photo back up, let's go back one further. So today's keynote is going to be, it's not so much challenges for the music industry, it's just a conversation about some of the big conversations we have to have, some of the stuff I'm thinking about, I think we should think about, some of which will get explored more during the course of the couple of days, some of which will be just over a beer and having a chat. And so I want to just run you through 5, 6, depending on time, 7 musings on the music industry, thoughts about where we're going, where we're heading, and some of the key things to think about before we kind of arrive at these destinations. Yeah. So I think music is going to be more global. And I think music is going to be more local. So if I look at headline trends, it is cliche to say, Despacito, big song, great. But the impact of large audiences in Latin America using streaming services, and in a world where your global chart is judged by one play, and they all add up, you're seeing more and more natural influence through the nature of music consumption, through nature of where Spotify is large, that is driving more and more Latin influence into the US chart a little, but into the global chart especially. And what I find really interesting is that is great for Latin and a real challenge for Africa. Because naturally you're going to get this pickup. I think it's fantastic that music is more of a merging of things, a collision of different cultures, different vibes. I think it's a real thing that unites people. I think that's amazing. But as algorithms tend to become self-enforcing, that you risk getting more of what you've always got, because they look at history. They, oh, you like this and you like this and you like this, you probably like that. So based on history, you get a certain view of the world. Looking forward from there is a real challenge, and how you bring variety into that environment, almost artificially, as distinct from, I mean, we assume algorithms are natural, they're not, of course, they're man-made creations. Anyone who looks at how Facebook changes things, you can see that a human view on what algorithms should do transforms dramatically the desperate ineffectiveness of my online marketing. The nature of algorithms isn't neutral. And I think at some point there needs to be a conversation about, for those countries that have got smaller populations, how do you not get drowned out in a world where algorithms drive global charts? Charts themselves are complicated, we'll come to that in a minute, because again the rules are written by people and it depends on the objective as to how you go there. But in the meantime, anyone know who the guy on the right is? Someone said, no, I said so predictable. Is that you, Jay? I'm not blaming you, okay, it wasn't Jay. You're a gentleman. Not me. So this is a guy called Buff, who is a rapper, and he is rapping in Dutch language, which is fairly unusual at the time of standing. Drunk Chris may have appeared yesterday, we'll find out. Definitely didn't happen. Jet Lag Chris is another guy you'll meet at some point. So Buff is one of a real resurgence of Dutch language hip hop in the Netherlands, and it's partly driven by music streaming. So one of the benefits of streaming is that experimenting is far easier to do, it's free at the point of use, you've already opted in, so you paid your £10, or you've already opted in and you are kind of consuming for free. But the cost of trying something new has really diminished. And it brings us onto attention deficit and people skipping through because you're not as committed to a track as you were before, as committed to an album as you were before. But for artists taking risks with music, it's been a huge opportunity. And in Europe we're seeing a massive resurgence in, so Dutch language hip hop wasn't performing very well at all. Insert Spotify doing very well in Holland, and you are now seeing massive boom of Dutch language hip hop. And it's not the odd one out. You're actually seeing more and more local scenes developing. So grime is a good example in the UK of a culture-led music scene. And also the phrase I never thought I'd say on stage, but here we are. Gangster rap in Frankfurt, German gangster rap, local language, is doing really well. I couldn't vouch for it personally, but people tell me it's cool. I think most of my life has been people telling me it's cool or not. And then like 2 years later I go, oh yeah, it's cool. People have moved on. Moving on. So, genre, very quickly. So Jared wrote a really interesting piece on the genreless music fan. This was picking up on some comments from Vice about how it used to be that you were defined by the genre of music you listened to. Now, variety, people kind of, you don't fall into one group or another. So genre arguably increasingly meaningless until your browsing behaviour becomes a function of genre. At which point genre lines become incredibly important and probably become more important to polarised audiences. Because you've got people who don't know anything about music, who want to have a view on, I'll listen to some rock, and defining what that should be is complex. You've also then got your music fans who are into trancey, deep, hard house-ish, or whatever it might be. I'm not that cool. You'll find that out in 2 days. I might feel really surprised now. But the music genre they're into is so specific that they are really pursuing an absolute niche, and how you tag music for that, how you serve that hyper-engaged audience, as well as that kind of, not lean back because you're sitting forward to make a decision, but that broad brush music consumer who's, yeah, just give me some rock, that'll be okay. How you define these things is interesting and gets more and more challenging as time goes on, particularly voice activated. So Alexa, play me some good music. What are the rules for that? Who writes the rules for that? What economic incentives exist around that? Does it go to Spotify? Does it go to Amazon Prime? Does it go to any other service you prefer? When mobile phones first came out, there was a big battle for the default search engine inside your mobile browser. And there were arrangements set up in the US whereby the manufacturer had done a deal, and that was the preferred search engine of choice. There was actually then a further deal done in stores. So some of the stores would open the phone, and selling on their network, they would change things. So the default browser had been changed, or sorry, the default search engine within the browser had been updated to their preferred search engine. I think we're going to see a bit of an arms race across the audio devices to talk about what route do you get to market. So which service do you choose, question one. Which artists then come out on top when you say, play me good music? What happens? And when you say, Alexa, play me something really shit, who gets really upset? So, talent development is challenging. It's never been easy. But in a world where people skip through things very quickly, people don't engage necessarily with an artist versus an album versus a song. They almost sometimes just engage with a playlist alone. We'll come on to that in a second. But I think things are getting harder for artists. Pink Floyd really only came good on their fifth album. I mean, that's a judgment call, and that's terrible for an economist to have a view on someone as great as them, but there we go. Consensus at the place I used to work was that, album 5 was the one. How many bands do you know who get 4 other chances? After your single doesn't go well nowadays, let alone after an album doesn't go well. The runway for an artist is much, much, much tighter than it's ever been. The expectations are high, and the opportunity to mess up. Guys, have another go. Doesn't quite feel like where we are as far as talent development is going. And investing in talent tends to be, risks being increasingly short run, shorter runway, higher heights expected, without necessarily the opportunity being given to learn some lessons, to make some mistakes, and to develop. Cash flow is also hard, because in the old world, if you had a successful 6 weeks, you got all your money back and some, and you can pay for album number 2. Paying for album 2 in a streaming world where you get paid every time someone streams and arguably get longer, much greater longevity and more money over time, but without the immediacy of it. There's also a challenge there in how bands outside of a label framework fund album 2, album 3, album 4. And there's a challenge for the label, how much do you spend ahead of time? How much do you bank on future income? Boring economics phrase, there's a discount rate. So it's the value of money, having money now as opposed to money in the future. So if someone said to me, can you have 100 quid now, or you can have 120 quid 4 years from now, I'm probably not taking 100 quid now. There's a value to having money now because you can use it now, and you can build to have more money in the long run as a function of that. That dynamic is a challenge for the streaming world, and it's the one I think we're still adjusting to. And it's partly, sorry, it's rude to say, but it's part of our Ministry of Sound had such a big issue with Spotify, because you changed that 2-week, 3-week window of making a ton of money off one big song to need longevity. And that dance music world where they were in, where hits changed so quickly, it just didn't fit the business model. One other thing, thinking about live, this is some old research. This was, a friend of mine published this. Deloitte do a really good predictions report every year. There's an Aussie version of it. If you look for Deloitte predictions, you'll find it. It's well worth reading. This is from 2010, 2011. So, yeah, these in 2011. We looked at the top 20 grossing tours from Polestar's data. I have to be a snob about Polestar data. It's self-reported, so take it with a pinch of salt. But the hierarchy was pretty good, so we didn't mind it so much. If you want to talk about data quality in live music, you'll want to buy yourself a beer, but I'll have one too. I'm very happy to chat about that. Massive data snob you will notice over time. We looked at the average age of people, and it turned out that 40% of front men, front women, across these live tours were in their 60s. And that's really important when you look at talent development, because while I'm really pleased to see revival tours happening, Heritage Band back on the road, I think it's an amazing opportunity. I think it's helped grow the live music market. What does it do to talent development when AC/DC are nicking every headline slot? I mean, there are countries who make that joke, aren't they? But what happens to young talent when returning talent has an existing fan base, proven track record? Your risk profile is so much smaller with someone who's already proven, already known. Chance could be a very long conversation, let's not worry about chance. But there's a question fundamentally, what should chance do? Are they there to drive recognition of existing success? Or are they there to highlight, showcase new talent and to drive discovery of new things? I don't mind which they do, it's not my call. But looking at the consistent dominance of the Aussie charts from international repertoire, there's a question to be asked about what purpose are they serving? Who do they serve currently? And who should they be serving? I know the answer, just like asking questions. The same could be argued about radio. Radio quotas, there's a conversation to be had there. I'm not expert in it, I'm not going to try and tell you guys about the Aussie market too much, even though I did get a really good briefing from the drawing you saw earlier. The nature of radio consumption, it's massive for discovery. It's massive for discovery for casual music fans. These are guys who need to spoon feed more than anyone else. Can we take the opportunity to help radio drive a better outcome for Australian music? Dunno. This is my favourite FastForward delegate, recently overtaken by young Sammy in the corner, who, bless her, has just fallen asleep. This is Erin. And she's just an excuse really to show Erin because she's amazing. But she came to FastForward in Amsterdam. Business talent. Business talent is challenging. So there is a bit of a brain drain happening in the music industry generally, where tech has more money. And tech has a habit of nicking smart music guys and stopping them being smart music guys and girls. Sorry, I'll catch myself doing that, it's a really bad habit. The opportunity to make loads more money exists outside of music often. And there's a real brain drain challenge across the industry as people move from music itself into tech. It's partly why the value gap conversation is so important about how tech companies are making loads of money by exploiting existing musical copyrights, by exploiting kind of other people's hard work. The debate centres around the artist, and it should, but there is a knock-on impact that if the flow of value is going outside of music into tech, then you will see a similar flow of talent, both in existing executives, but also then when someone says, well, where do you want to work? You're leaving university, you look at where the money is, there's a long run challenge there. Something we didn't say about bands and runways earlier is that increasingly labels, other professionals are understandably taking more time to commit to getting behind an artist. And for me, one of the concerns for the industry overall, again, no judgment with it, but just an observation, is that managers do more and more for artists because no one else is there. And I worry for smart managers burning out for the amount of work they put in, the unexpected, like unknown returns, investing hours, years into artists, and then risking a more senior manager, once you've done the groundwork, getting alongside a band and going, hey guys, how you doing? I think there needs to be, I would like to see more regard for managers generally. But I think that's just me. We have more managers. Yeah. From an Australian perspective, you also got the brain drain challenge of international, of people leaving. And for me, part of the reason I was excited to do FastForward in Australia, I think it's a really innovative market. I used to run global teams, the guys who'd always trust to just get the fuck on with it, were the Aussies. Partly because the time zone is so inconvenient, partly because it's so far away. You kind of have to let you guys do your thing. But would always come back with better ideas than I ever had. And it was great because no one was ever paying attention to Australia, so I'd go, and I've got this great idea. But for me, it's an innovative market, it's a really interesting place to be, and I just wanted to show that picture again. Enough. Right. Formats change. Video killed the radio star. The fact that formats are shifting changes consumption. We'll come on to that in a second. I think building fans around an artist is harder now than ever. I think the opportunity to be discovered, to be listened to is one thing. But I think there's a risk, and again, no answers to the problem, but let's talk about it. How do you build deep relationships rather than shallow relationships? How do you build lasting long-term value as opposed to being song number 7 on piano songs? And while you're on the piano songs playlist, amazing, you've got all these strings, you've got money, I'm not judging it. But we need a more articulate, intelligent conversation about fans and about who's a fan of an artist, as opposed to who's a fan of just a playlist, who's a fan of just one song. And within the consulting thing, not to sell it, but just to illustrate, we had definitions of playlist fans, because I don't want to mistake them for artist fans just because they listen a lot. If all your streaming is coming from the piano songs playlist, when I'm no longer on the piano songs playlist, you probably didn't notice who I was. And that's okay. I've got the consumption. There's no harm in being the person who listens to piano songs. It's okay, guys. If you listen to piano songs, we're not judging. There is a risk there. Now we'll come to it. The downside for me of the playlist-led or playlist-only approach is if you get stuck in the playlist. And then when you leave the playlist, no one follows you. And so within Spotify Analytics, you can definitely look at save rates and who's adding you to their own collection to consume that way. Follower numbers are a good metric as well to see, are you converting? But I think in a lot of the analysis, we have to look at listeners overall. Someone who listened once and never listened again probably isn't included in your fan analysis if you're looking actually at fans. There's as good a chance they listened for 45 seconds and didn't like it as there is that they listened once and did like it. But probably if you listened and you liked it, you probably listen again. We need a sharper definition around fans, particularly when it comes to inferring from the existing platforms, so that your target marketing at core fans and the super fans can be better informed than just a lot of people listen. We'll talk about how data's flawed in a minute, because I've got a hobby horse and I've got a conference. Format shifting. How to, right. That's kind of a playlist slide, I've done it already. The nature of video killed the radio star. Are we now writing songs that are catchy within the first 30 seconds in order to not get skipped in playlist? Is there a risk that the medium changes the message, that the way people are consuming fundamentally now changes so that we're increasingly serving up bite-sized content for an audience with attention deficit? So there's an extent to which you have to play the game, that there are algorithms at play that are there to be gamed. There's an opportunity to be smart about how you get noticed, how you get your stats up. But at the same time, there's a risk for me that if music is created to serve a medium rather than for the sake of art itself, there's a chance that we just end up diluting what we do. And it works for a short time, it works while the rules haven't changed. But in the long run, you're going to want something more exciting than a format which is a 30 seconds hook, great, hook repeats, great. Someone goes ooh over the top. Did you see that video of, so this is why I'm not on the creative side of things, guys. Did you see the video of kind of, was it Axis of Awesome that have just got their 4 chord songs that you just run through, every song's kind of the same? I don't mind it, because familiarity breeds engagement. But at some point, something's got to shake out of band to be exceptional. And I think there's a risk if we are just playing the game of being picked up by an algorithm, we're not aiming for exceptional, we're aiming at a fairly fixed formula. And nothing wrong right to a formula, it's worked for years for a number of artists. The Fray have released the same album 3 times, I love all of them. And it works, I know what I'm getting. Cheap shot, sorry Sonny. I think it's only Hannah here, that's right, right? We'll cut it out of the video. So, it works. But let's try and aim for exceptional, rather than just convenient. Because the most popular flavour ice cream in the world is vanilla. But if you're just going for the mass market over time, like, shouldn't we experiment more? Shouldn't we be more engaged? Shouldn't we be a little bolder? I mean, I want ice cream made with nitrogen. I want something that amazes, rather than something that just, yeah, satisfies, kind of okay. Data and driving decisions, right, I'm going to rattle through this in 2 minutes because I took too long on the interesting stuff. Data, for better or for worse, drives decisions. For better is when it can accurately measure effectively what you've been doing. Where it's really unhelpful is where it can't effectively, accurately measure what you've been doing. Data isn't perfect. We joked at Polestar's expense slightly earlier that self-reported data has a challenge. The reason that self-reported data has a challenge in that live music sense is if you didn't sell out, do you report to Polestar? Probably not. If you sold out, do you report to Polestar? Yeah. Okay. So we've got a bias already in the information that we're looking at as the global metric for what live music's doing. And it's really important to understand what goes on behind the scenes to drive that. One of my fears for the music industry is that A&R, so continuing a theme, A&R can disqualify or not even look at music because the stats aren't there to back it. In principle, I would much rather have an artist with no social following and amazing songs because the social following is a bit I can do. That's normally my contribution. How do we get you to stand out? How do we get the marketing done right? How do we get you in front of everybody? And I think we need freedom to make some mistakes in A&R. I think there needs to be opportunity to go for the liquid nitrogen approach rather than just the mass market. I would love to see more people given more chance to fuck up. I would actually like to see the same within algorithm playlists. I would love to see Spotify bring out, or anybody else bring out, yeah, we're going to get this wrong 9 times out of 10, but the 1 to 10, you'll fucking love it. Playlist. They'll name it something better. But that essence of, if we always recommend what everyone else also likes, you're just going to end up in a cycle. Like, everyone's going to recommend Ed Sheeran and Adele. Great. Where's the risky music? Where's the bit that says, you listen to a lot of emo, it's not a lot of emo. Here's something left field and weird that you're going to love. And 9 in 10 will get wrong, but that 1 in 10 is totally worth it. I feel we're stuck in, and actually the consumer expectation is part of the problem. Because tech is so, sorry, is that 5 minutes to question or 5 minutes to shut up? Thank you. I'm blaming jet lag for that one. I also haven't seen Michael in person for like 6 months, so our communication's not quite as good as it usually is. Sorry, the person I forgot to thank, we ought to give Michael a wave at the back. Everything you see that works is Michael. Everything you see that's slightly delayed, slightly ineffective, slightly inefficient, potentially hungover, probably me. So the reason your badges are all beautiful and shiny, Michael. The reason you're sitting listening to me, Michael. So, computer says no. I worked in banking, that was my first job. You get a loan request in and the computer says no? Nope, not going to happen. We need more freedom than just computer says. Let's take the two brothers. So Dan Carey's at the back. I'll make you wave again. Dan Carey, youngest brother, favourite. Other brother, we'll cut this out of the video. Other brother has got a t-shirt that reads like this. There are 2 types of people in the world. Those who can extrapolate from incomplete data sets. Data is going to be incomplete. One of the things that I worry for is that some tactical decisions, some strategic decisions don't get made because there's not data to back it up. That isn't how life should be. For me, data should be an enabler and empowerer rather than a safety net. You've also got a dynamic whereby asking people what they want. Henry Ford once said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. People don't know what's good for them sometimes. It's why it's so important we take risks. It's why I got so caught up on the ice cream thing. Like, it's so important that we can show people what it is they might enjoy, or might not enjoy. But to drive that from a creative place is really important. Other brother, still a heartbreaker, inferring from incomplete information, just to explain what I'm on about. So you turn up in Sydney, there's a girl in Darling Harbour, she looks at your Instagram, she sends you a message, hypothetically. I did check with her if I could do this. She doesn't hit like on your posts though. Suddenly 5 of her friends are following you. Inferring from incomplete information, she probably quite liked the photo. And you should probably buy her a drink. So, that is enough from me. I think there's 10 minutes for questions, if you've got questions at this stage. If not, we can just talk about how awesome it is to have Erin in Amsterdam. have Sammy here with us today, and about her jet lag time. Any questions? If not, we can have coffee. No questions. It's always an awkward one, and normally I'm the guy who's like, well, I've got a question to kick it all off, but it's just me up here. There's a question.
Thanks, Chris. I'm Sammy's keeper. Hello.
Sorry, well, this is Liz. Make sure when you talk to Liz, you also talk to Liz. I just talked to Sammy for 20 minutes and realised I should probably talk to Liz too.
He's very good with names. Thanks, Chris.
No worries.
I want to ask, and maybe this is because, I'm sorry, I'm an academic as well as a music person, so I'm that guy that reads stuff and then looks back and says, oh. But I wonder, you mentioned about the format and making music to the format, and I'm thinking about how that happened, say, when the 45 was released. Because that's exactly what happened. People just wrote songs that would fit on one side of a record and then experimented on the B side. So what was awesome is you get something like Strawberry Fields, but on the other side, you know what I mean? You'd start, people would make their vanilla, but then there was still room for nitrogen as long as it, as long as it still was 2.5 minutes. Do you reckon there's a B side opportunity maybe?
I think so. Free at the point of use really enables people to experiment more, because the cost of trying it for the consumer has come down so dramatically that it's not even, I've got to buy the album to see if I like it, I've got to buy the song to see if I like it. No, I can give it 3 minutes. My concern is they give it 3 seconds. And if I look at the album format overall, I still like albums. Not just because I'm a little bit older than I pretend I am, but because a body of work is an expression of where an artist's at. I also really quite like the lean back nature of it. I've made one decision. I don't have to make another decision for an hour. It's almost a nicer listening experience than 2.5 minutes of a song, shit, what next? And that kind of serving people a whole meal rather than just a snack, I think is really valuable. In terms of experimenting more, I think there should be license for that. I think we should see more of it. But I also think the world doesn't reward it. So I think experimenting should be encouraged, but I also think the metrics for success should be defined more carefully for exactly what you're trying to do, rather than looking and then comparing yourself to everybody else. That's a long-winded answer, but how do we? It's okay, cool. Is there another question? Anyone else want to know data definition things? Any data questions I'm here for you? Anyway.
No data questions here, Chris. Not yet anyway. You made mention of, I guess, voice activation being like a bit of a game changer in the next few years. I was wondering if you see any other sort of changes on the horizon in the industry, say in the next sort of 24, 36 months, that might be a bit of a game changer in the same way.
Interesting. So, yeah, I think voice is going to be one of the big ones. And we've got a conversation about VR and AR, so I don't want to cut across that too much. One of the downsides of doing this session first is that I know what's going to be really interesting in the next 2 days, and I don't want to spoil anything. It's slightly better than the time I gave the final keynote after I'd set up the entire conference and everyone had already said all the smart stuff, and you're kind of there like, oh yeah. Key changes. In-car is going to be interesting. So will in-car voice activation drive streaming subscriptions? Hopefully. A friend of mine was saying that it would be amazing to get a car that can just drive you across middle America or the middle of Australia. I'm pretty sure there's not enough Wi-Fi for that. But the idea that in connected cities you might just have a more seamless listening experience, I think that's exciting. I don't think internet speeds are going to make a big difference. The music's there already. Arguably, as internet speeds continue to pick up, we've got more competition from other media, just because the file sizes will become more possible on multi-device. In terms of big shifts, I think that's probably going to be the big one. I think how people search and who gets to choose what the outcome is probably the biggest arms race for me. How people engage with social media is going to be interesting. Facebook fallout's interesting. Whether businesses go away from that particular platform and see some shake-up. I would love to see a bit of shake-up, not because I think Facebook's bad, but because I think competition is good. And if we can't do it in light of recent revelation, I wonder when the moment will ever be for us to experiment a bit more with what we engage with on our screens 4,000 times a day. Any more questions? Is there any more time? Okay, 5 minutes. Any more questions? Or do you want me to waffle on for 5 minutes? I can do it. Do you want admin Chris back to the exits again? Okay.
Not a question, just a comment. Just kind of picking up on the whole kind of 45 record. Do you think that there's a sense of, a case of being able to kind of educate people in terms of the music that they enjoy? Because I feel like you're talking about this takeaway, mentality of quick, let's flip between here and there. But I could certainly speak of my own family and my mum who loves vanilla ice cream and won't go anywhere near the nitrogen, just because that's that's what she knows, that's what she's comfortable with. So where are you at, or how do you think we can kind of educate people more to kind of take the time, take the opportunity in this kind of environment, this kind of format, to really open up their minds to the different types of amazing flavours that are out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think everything in society is tugging against that sit down, listen and engage. I would love to see music listening become an activity rather than a top up to your gaming experience, a top up to your dinner. To actually have listening come back as something that is a complete activity. If we could start having that conversation with consumers, I think that would be a massive step in this direction, so that music stops being incidental and starts being core. And I also think in a world of, I actually think there's opportunity for it, because you think how much time we spend with screens all day long. There must be an opportunity to not look at a screen and do something. And I think if music can start to stand up for itself, I mean, historically music hasn't done a good job of holding its own value. That it took iTunes to tell us what the price of a song was. Even jumping back further, that CDs were underpriced and at the back of the supermarket to sell more toothpaste. We haven't done a good job of standing up for our own value. And I think if we can stand up for music listening as an activity in its own right, I think we'll start to nudge people towards a deeper engagement. I also think we can lead it ourselves a little bit to make sure we're actually engaging with albums, engaging with songs more than once, and where possible recommending grower songs rather than just the sugary hit, if you will. A lot of analogies today, sorry. Probably got 1 minute left. Mark, you had a question? No, it's okay. Dan, back you go. Any questions? This Dan's on his feet now, really eager to get on a microphone. Anyone on that side of the room? Nope. Okay. I believe that's all, folks.